So before we get into passing stacks, Ryan, I want to do a quick little segment here. I want to talk about, we'll call them Week 18 heroes. And Week 18 is always an interesting week in the NFL. We always got some guys who kind of step up out of nowhere, win weeks for people. Usually it's people in season-long leagues are like, oh, my God, I had that guy all year. He didn't do anything, and now he went huge. I think last year was Alvin Kamara, had like 3 or 4 touchdowns. That might have been Week 17, but I remember I was in the Scott Fish Bowl, and I had Kamara, and I would have won it but Kamara, I was out a week early. I was in the semifinals, and then Kamara had, it was 4 or 5 touchdowns that second week. But there's always guys late in the year that go off. I want to talk about a couple guys. It can be off the radar guys. It can be guys that studs that kind of haven't stepped up all year, but I want to take a couple of guys each, guys you think are going to be like league winning, tournament winning picks this week that maybe a little bit off the radar.
Okay, sure. Try to name a couple guys at a couple different positions. So let's start on the Steelers since we were just there. Deontay Johnson being out frees up, 13, 14, 15 targets for some of these receivers. It's Big Ben's last game. He's already throwing the ball 40 times. This guy, Chase Claypool, 5,100. It's the cheapest he's been all season on a Sunday slate. I mean, we've seen him priced over $6K for most of the season. He hasn't really done much. This is a spot where he should see 10 plus targets, you'd think. Maybe Ben takes some deep shots, maybe some more chances with it being his last game. Claypool could definitely catch a long touchdown here. Staying on the Steelers, Ray McLeod is only 3,800. He probably, he's seen 10 targets and 8 targets with Deontay Johnson active the last 2 weeks. I could see him sort of stepping into the role of Ben's favorite receiver. He's really cheap for that role, so I could see him going off. Moving over to running back. The Titans need to win to secure the bye and the number 1 seed. Derrick Henry is getting closer to healthy and ready for the playoffs, so I think it makes all the sense in the world for them to just pound Dante Foreman here. Could see, he had 26 carries last week for 132 yards. He looked really good. Could see 30 carries in this spot against the Texans. It's a really nice spot for him. Similar spot for Devin Singletary. Not a guy that I or most people have loved rostering, but you give me any running back in the NFL for 6,000 in a matchup against the Jets and tell me he's going to see 20 plus touches. Really don't care what his name is. That's a pretty good spot. Could have a huge game. And then a tight end. So the Buccaneers aren't, people are pretty much off the Bucs in this spot. It's tough to really know what they're going to do. However, I think taking a chance on Gronkowski could pay off because he's got a couple of big incentives. He needs 7 catches for a $500,000 bonus, and he needs 85 yards for a $500,000 bonus. So that's $1 million, and you figure he knows this. Brady knows this. They don't have Godwin anymore. There's no Antonio Brown anymore. It lines up for Gronk to have a big game if they're going to play. It's tough to know if they'll be out there all game, but it might be worth taking a shot on. And then I guess I'll stick in that game just one other guy. I know I'm naming a lot of guys here, but if the Bucs maybe do rest Evans and Gronk a little bit, Cyril Grayson stepped into the Godwin Antonio Brown role. He caught 6 balls for 81 yards last week. He could see similar volume this week. He's a speedster. He's got some big playability. You got Tom Brady as your quarterback, and he's only 4,400. So he could do it too. I hope I left you a few guys to name. I sort of rattled off a lot of guys, but
no, that's good. Those are all names that like guys that we don't really normally think about. I mean, I like a lot of those plays. You actually stole my running back. It was going to be Dante Foreman for me too. He's 5,700 against Houston. And just to build on that, you mentioned the game last week. I mean, Houston is 32nd in the NFL in yards per carry, given up at 4.9. They're 31st in rushing points against. He's a guy that you do need the good game script. Like if they get behind for some reason or it's a close game, maybe not as much. But if they get ahead, I think you're right. I think they feed the heck out of Foreman. I love this game for him. 5,700 is really a workable price. Great matchup, great game script. As long as they get ahead, I think you're going to see a lot of Dante Foreman. I think he's a guy that, could be, $120 and 2 touchdown kind of thing. Since you stole a couple of my names, I'm going to stick with a couple other receivers, guys that I think are really going to step up this week. The first is a guy who's way off the radar right now, has not stepped up. Was a second or third round pick earlier. Is Terry McLaurin in Washington. He's 6,200 for the price. That is a insane talent. I know it's been bad. Last week he did have 8 targets, though, 7 for 61. Hasn't 100 yards or a touchdown since week 11. Struggling, but this matchup against the Giants, I like this. He had a $107 and a touchdown against them in week 2. I think, what? Taylor Heineke's kind of weirdly playing for not only a job next year, but maybe like to get some tape and show some stuff for other teams. I think he's going to come out throwing. This is a big game for him personally. He's kind of on that edge right now, what they want to do with him. And I think the teams are still a little suspect on him. So I think a big game for Heineke might actually mean something for him going in the offseason. So I really like players with motivation like that. I think he's going to chuck it a few times up corner. I just need to hit on one of those big plays. And I think McLaurin could have a really big game. My other guy in this range, a little bit lower at 5,000. I think a lot of people are going to agree with you on Claypool. I think he's going to be pretty popular with Deontay Johnson out. I really like Marquez Callaway this week against Atlanta. We talked about Taysom Hill earlier. Callaway was really strong last week. Taysom Hill doesn't throw a ton, but he had 10 targets last week, 6 for 97. He now has 24 targets the last 3 weeks. So the guy that earlier in the year, everybody loved Marquez Callaway. He's like the breakout guy. He had a really big preseason to make some big plays. Has not worked out, did not work out for people, but 95 yards in 2 of his last 3 games. He has 30% of New Orleans passing targets last month. So, he is the guy right now. They have Traquan Smith, they have Alvin Kamara, but, when they drop back to pass, it seems like Taysom Hill likes to go to Marquez Callaway. So I really like this a spot that I think he go over 100 yards. He could score. I don't think he'd be all that popular. I don't think people really want to attack the New Orleans passing game. So McLaurin, Callaway, and I agree with you on Foreman. Those are my week 18 heroes.